Hi, my name is Lora-Mungai, and I'm an expert and advisor in the African creative industries and sports business in Africa.
Welcome to the African Tech Roundup, Marie.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you for instigating this conversation by posting on LinkedIn, where you went in on African filmmakers and their apparent lack of grasp of the opportunity, but also the challenges and risks associated with this AI wave we're all surfing at the moment.
Yes.
What inspired that post?
Well, listen, I've been thinking about this post for a while. I think ChatGPT really came out, 2 years ago? And then Sora came out also soon after that. And it was just a few months ago, but that came out, and suddenly the ability of creating moving images just with a text prompt was real and in front of our eyes. And things have been moving so fast since then. And I've been really trying to wrap my head around what this would mean for the industry. Like I think everyone else, right? It's going so fast that I don't think our brains can catch up with the actual evolution of the technology. And just recently, there's been even more advances with ChatGPT image generator. And so I thought this was really the moment to say this. So I've been, as you probably know, if you follow me, in the African creative space for about 20 years. Before I became an expert and consultant, I used to be a producer myself. I used to create content. And even before that, I was a journalist. So I've been really in content production, primarily video. I was doing TV, and then I was a film and TV producer for a long time. And so I'm very close to that industry, and I could see how these new tools were going to upend everything. Also today, in my role as advisor to a lot of large investors that are coming on the African continent, I'm aware of the extent of the conversations that are going on. And I could see a massive disconnect between, where people were in terms of projects that they were raising money from and where the technology had reached. And I can see that the projects that are out there in the marketplace are not even mentioning AI. I'm reviewing projects that are massive physical production infrastructure that we don't need anymore. I'm seeing people trying to raise hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for movies that they can make at home today. And my sense was that African filmmakers were not fully grasping the extent of the disruption that was taking place. I really wanted to give a wake-up call because I'm quite worried, actually, that if people on the continent are not seizing this opportunity very strongly to leverage these tools, the entire industry is going to be left behind. So that's really what made me write this post.
So, Marie, for someone who doesn't understand how you developed a passion for the African creative scene to begin with, give us a sense of how that journey began and what would lead to you transitioning out of being a practitioner in the space to being an advisor and an investment proponent in the space.
To give you a bit of my backstory, I'm originally from France. I did my entire career between the US and Africa. So I started out as a journalist, very young, right out of business school at CNN in New York. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I decided that I wanted to be closer to the real stories and where real people lived, because people in New York, sometimes they're in a bit of a bubble. And because I was bilingual in French and English, I thought perhaps Africa would be an interesting playground for me. And definitely I would get some real stories there. I knew nothing about the continent, right? I didn't have any particular knowledge of it or any connections there. But I arrived basically without a job, without anything in Kenya, in Nairobi in 2006. And I started out as a freelance journalist, so still working for CNN and others. I did that for a few years in a dozen countries. And really what I started seeing on the ground was very different from what I had learned in school, despite the fact that I went to an international school with people from everywhere in the world. I considered myself worldly, and yet I didn't know what was going on in Africa at the time. And that was pre-Africa Rising narrative. Africa was still the poor, hopeless continent at the time. And yet I was seeing, all sorts of technology popping up. I was in Kenya when M-Pesa was launched. I was seeing the explosion of malls, of cinemas. And first, as a journalist, I started telling these stories of innovation and economic growth and creativity on the continent. And then I eventually got a very strong pull to start becoming part of what I was seeing, and I just documented. So I transitioned to entrepreneurship. It's also when I met my first business partner in Kenya. His name is Ghetto. He's a very famous cartoonist in Kenya. Together, we launched a political satire show called The XYZ Show that became immensely popular. We built a production company around this, so that's how I became a producer. We then produced other things. We launched the show in Nigeria. And then I launched other businesses, a video on demand platform. So that led me to the tech space. That business was acquired by...
Is that where dreams go to die, VOD?
Very, very true. I'm glad that you're aware of this, because still today, I have people asking me how they should build a VOD platform. But I will reuse your phrase here. Yeah, that's where dreams go to die. At least I was saved by the fact that I managed to do an exit to Trace for this business. And then I also launched and managed a talent management agency for a while. So that was really my entrepreneurship journey. And after a while doing all of this and learning a lot from having all these experiences, I'm doing you the short version, but I really tried a whole bunch of stuff. Then I decided that I wanted to use my position, also being obviously a foreigner, so having access and maybe a certain credibility in front of investors that people on the continent are still struggling to have. So leverage really my position as, maybe a mediator or a facilitator, and help then drive investments from large investors into the continent creative and sports spaces. So that's how I created then my current business, Restless Global, which is an advisory firm. And that's how I became an advisor and consultant. And I feel that this is a role that really is well suited to my position in the industry. And so my goal is really to help the creative and sports sectors really flourish in as many ways as I can.
Now that you've explained your personal journey through the scene and your active business curation in the scene today, it really gives life to the post. So, let's just go through some of the things you mentioned here and maybe trace them to live points in your current experience. Maybe a live conversation you're having with a potential investor, a filmmaker or a producer who's trying to get their project made, someone completely new to the quote unquote African opportunity within the creative economy. So I'm not sure what will map where, but let's play that game if you don't mind.
Okay.
So you started with saying disruption isn't coming at some point in the vague future, which tends to be the narrative. It's like, it's coming. Who's typically still feeling like it's still going to hit in your experience currently?
Really, I would say most of the filmmakers on the continent that I deal with are not fully, they know there are things going on, but somehow they don't feel immediately concerned or worried by that. Certainly, I'm thinking a lot about Nollywood because I've worked in Nigeria very actively for the past 12 years now. So I'm very, very enmeshed and embedded in this ecosystem. And I can tell you that Nollywood filmmakers are not fully aware or leveraging AI in any way that is substantial. So I'm hoping that the conversation will change very soon. There is the first AI-themed movie that will be released this month in Nigeria. So I hope that there will be some discussion around this. But you see, I'm seeing really a dichotomy between the way that films and television is being produced in Nigeria today, and Nollywood, as people now know, is the second largest film industry in the world in terms of output after Bollywood and before Hollywood. So it's really a massive industry for Nigeria, and it's keeping its head in the sand at the moment. Meanwhile, thanks to LinkedIn and all the connections I'm making there, I follow some independent filmmakers who are a lot more advanced. So one that I can mention that I met recently also in person in Dakar is Hussein Sambelso, a Senegalese filmmaker who has also taken on this topic and really trying to save the industry from itself by explaining what can be done. And I had a session with him last month in Dakar where he showed me a few things that he could do. He showed me some of the projects he's doing. And I can tell you that anything can be done with AI today. We literally, one person in front of their computers can do TV advertising that are much better than any agency working traditionally can do. And you have now pockets of, in general, it's independent filmmakers who are not part of the general ecosystem, some that are a bit in the fringes, a bit of the geeks and the techies that are working on projects that are amazing, I have to say, in terms of quality and ambition of not just, not in terms of visuals, but generally these people, they're also super creative themselves. So I've been impressed. And I think that we should wake up collectively to what's going on.
Do you think the immediate practical application of AI tools and AI augmented, say, process flows is most usefully applied right now to getting the project down or distilling what the project is or the creative idea, or to getting the creative idea made? If you were to talk to a creator now who's challenged with where to apply their energies right now, is it in the storyboarding elements, in casting a vision to would-be funders and financiers and partners such as yourselves who might sort of bring the right money and talent to a project? Or is it in focus on actually making things more cheaply, quicker, more ambitious?
I think it's everywhere. I mean, I would go as far as saying, and that's sometimes the advice that I give to some of these people reaching out to me on LinkedIn. I would tell them, don't even waste your time trying to raise money anymore. Just do it.
Wow.
Just do it. You can do it.
Wow.
And also advise them to build in public and to build their own audience. And maybe they'll find partners as they build in public, but you almost don't need any funding. I mean, you need to, subscribe to the pro versions of these tools, but that's really the only thing that you need. That's literally what I've been able to see with my own eyes as what people are able to do. I would say, though, that in order to be able to use these tools effectively, you need to know where you're going. So a certain level of awareness and education, which could be self-education, in filmmaking is important. So the people that I'm seeing succeeding are, again, as I said, geeks. So they know who they're trying to emulate. They have very clear ideas in their minds. They also know that they can use the most simple AIs, ChatGPT and the rest, to help coach them on the development side, right? You never go with your first original idea. You need somebody to bounce ideas back and forth and help you develop your characters and, your plot points and all of that. But AI can help you do that. It's a conversation. So you can literally tell ChatGPT, hey, play the role of a veteran filmmaker and help me refine my idea. And this is what I want to do. And this is my idea of characters. What do you think? And what if I want it to be a bit more character driven and a bit less action driven? What should I do? And back and forth, back and forth. From this, you can get your script, you can get your storyboard, you can get your whatever, your color palette, anything that you can ask it. And then you use other tools to actually design and create it.
Heck, you could even tell it, please emulate advice I might get from Marie Lora-Mungai
exactly.
on how I might build a business case for a would-be financier for my project.
So I'm glad that you mentioned this, because I wish people thought of that instead of asking me directly, because I do not have time to answer everyone.
Yeah.
But I do tell them, just ask ChatGPT. So here's where there's a bit of a limitation in which, as you know, these models have only been trained until like 2023. So any writing that I've done after this is nowhere in the system. I would say I'm not even finding my writing from before, but it's made to be consumed publicly. That's why I put it online. So please don't hesitate to copy paste my newsletter, whatever, in your models and question it. And
feed the beast with Marie.
Feed the beast with my stuff. And I can give a trick to your listeners here.
Yeah.
There's one AI that doesn't have these morals about copyright issues, which is a problem, but I don't care with my own content. It's made,
so
again,
don't do
to
it
be
with other
public.
people's stuff. But Marie's giving you official permission on this platform to do this.
Please use it. Of course.
Let me guess.
If you
DeepSeek.
No, it's Grok. Elon's
Is it Grok?
AI. Obviously, you're a fellow South African.
Oh, wow.
So,
also, I'm Zimbabwean. So,
you're Zimbabwean. Okay, so you're safe. It's okay. It's okay. Because he's giving South Africa a bad name these days. No, but it's very important because, by the way, of course, I'm all for AI to be regulated and not to rip off people's intellectual property. So this is another topic, right? I'm not advocating for this.
Yes.
But my role in the industry is to put information that doesn't exist out there. It's not to keep it for myself. So again, my content is up for grabs. Of course, if you're going to lift up entire paragraphs or sentences, you have to credit me. Don't be stupid, right?
Listen, Marie's no fool.
And I will come for you indeed, because that's just being rude and stupid.
That's theft.
But that's theft, exactly. But I want you to learn from my stuff, so that is okay. But so if you use Grok has access to, the platform formerly known as Twitter, and now it's the same company. XAI has just acquired X or Twitter. I mean, this is a strange deal, but what it means is that you can literally ask Grok to look at the information that has transited through Twitter or X to answer your questions. And my stuff has transited through there. So that's what I use when I want to make reference to myself.
Wow, that's a neat trick. As a longtime user of the platform formerly known as Twitter, I will definitely do that. I've long shared on certain hashtags there, like living truthfully, for example. I'm gonna do that.
Yes, it's a little hack, and please use it because the others won't be able to give you very useful current information. So yeah.
That's a great segue actually to my next question, because, I've been wondering to what degree filmmaking in this particular context, and I'm limiting it to filmmaking intentionally because perhaps we'll have other conversations sometime, Marie, about other topics. But I really want us to sort of wrestle with the filmmaking angle that you created on your post. So is filmmaking now an auteur's medium? In other words, you could go to film school, presumably even today, and focus on just one aspect of filmmaking. And generally, you get a lot of advice from people in the industry to be like a world-class DOP or a world-class, director, writer even, or, an actor or like a thespian, let's call it. Whereas what you described a little earlier on, the geek you put it, sounds like we might need to even think about training ourselves or training the next generation of filmmakers quite differently to how we've thought about it before, if we're going to take full advantage of this.
That's very correct. And again, we're going to talk about filmmaking right now, but this applies to every industry, right? So think of it as there's no limit to execution anymore. So where the difference is going to happen is how you direct the tools to get to a result that's as close as possible to what you have in your mind. And I think today you can get very close, and we're still just at the beginning. So all these tools are improving as we speak, right? But so from what I'm seeing from practical examples of people doing this today, what I've noticed that they have is really the ability to think in 3 dimensions, right? It's people who have developed their brain both on the left side and the right side, so they know how to use technical tools. They're not scared by them. By the way, they're very simple, so nobody should be scared by them. But then they still have a vision. They still have a story that they want to tell, and they're able to to conjugate the two and to combine the two. And I think that that's where we need to learn how to think differently, because in the traditional way of doing filmmaking, people are calibrated. A DOP is going to be obsessed by his image. Well, you kind of don't need that anymore. Again, the awareness and education of what image looks like and what you can do with a visual medium, I think will be useful, but you don't actually need to know how to use a camera anymore, which is crazy, right?
Sounds like you're describing taste and having an ability to discern what good looks like, which isn't necessarily the exact same thing as having the skill set of a world-class DOP who's live on set, say, somewhere in Hollywood today.
So it's taste. I hate that word vision because to me, it always feels so self-aggrandizing. Like, I have a vision, I'm a visionary. I never would say this about myself, but at least knowing what you want to achieve. And some of it, I have to say, actually comes from experience. So it's not that older people like myself, I don't know how old you are, but maybe like yourself.
40 going on 41.
Okay, I'm 43. So we're in the same generation.
Yeah.
I think there is still a big role to play for those of us who have like these 20 years of experience, because we have honed our taste and, our confidence creatively in what we want to achieve through this experience, which will enable us to, if we make the effort to learn these tools, to use them properly.
Yeah.
And whereas a young person will have perhaps a better ability to learn them, perhaps a fresher point of view, but less experience to rely on. So they'll be less able to compare to other things that they've seen, or maybe they'll bring a bit less depth. So we all have a role to play, right? And you have to play to your strength. So, but you're right. Does it make any sense to learn how to use a camera today? Definitely doesn't make any sense to learn how to edit. This is done. To do voiceovers, it's done. Dubbing, it's done. Visual effects,
wow,
it's done.
Marie just came straight from me. Like, by the way, full disclosure, I've probably made more money as a voiceover artist than any one thing I've ever done as a freelance talent consultant, anything. I think I said to my message to you when I reached out, I said, 2 companies to date, European companies, have reached out to collaborate with me on basically voiceover disruption products. And they basically wanted to represent my voice in these new marketplaces they want to create that will maybe never need me to be in a studio ever again. And that's part of the value proposition. I've turned them both down, but I wonder what your advice is to people like me, talent, in this case, a voice talent, but someone listening thinks of themselves as an on-screen talent of any kind, whether it's a presenter on CNN or an actor in a film. What's the healthy way to think about everything we're discussing in the context of being the talent?
So this is very difficult because, I'm sorry, but I think you're aware your voice talent job is going to disappear. And at the moment,
she's pushing the knife in, folks. Like
no, but I think
the knife was halfway in. Now it's going all the way. No, that's fine.
Because you know that, and you've recorded so many things already. With your voice, even someone without asking you could go pull your voice from public recording, double it, and then make your own voice say anything. That's how scam artists are already doing, right? They're already innovating with this. So I'm sure you've heard of people who receive a phone call from someone in their family saying, whatever,
yep,
I need money. So if these guys can do that, you can imagine that anybody can do that. So your voice...
can run an ad on the other side of the world.
Exactly. Your voice might be used...
in a different language.
Exactly what I was going to say. Maybe there's a Japanese dude using with your voice somewhere doing ads in Japan, right?
That's true.
So this is gone. I'm hoping that regulations will catch up with this so that we can start. At some point they will have to, right? Copywriting your actual tone of voice so that whatever is made using this gives you copyright. That's where we're trying to go. Like that's really that piece of legislation that is lacking now. How can we track? And of course, there's technology to track the use of all creative elements that what blockchain is. Okay. So, a few years ago, there was the whole Web3 craze. And I was very excited about this because I could see how it could help track copyright for, African creations that are not being tracked right now. But it was way too early.
Yeah.
But maybe now we'll be forced into blockchain and Web3 because that's the only way you'll be able to track the usage of your particular voice around the world. And then as long as you can track it, then you are fine. That means you can license it to whoever wants that voice in whatever language. That might even make you more money, but we don't have that legislation yet, right?
Mm.
So this is where everybody needs to keep the pressure on. All artists need to get together and have these conversations in every country around the world saying, how do we keep getting ownership of this? I think you have seen H&M doing deals with models to create their avatars and make them work in other countries.
Yep.
With the model keeping ownership of their own avatar.
Yep.
It's a great case study. Let's see how that goes. A lot of people were scared by it, but I think the only positive way to go about this is when the person who owns the talent, the voice, the face, whatever, is able to track the use of themselves, right? And I want to say also something because there's a bit of a misunderstanding also in filmmaking when people are saying, oh, but we can do films without actors. Yes, you can. However, at the moment, what I've seen actually uses real actors. The whole difference is that you can film somebody who will do the facial expressions and who will do the actual acting, but you can film this with a phone, right? And that can get embedded into an entire AI environment. So it can be any person, could be a famous person, a non so famous person. Of course, there's the option of creating an avatar based on that person, but I think there will still be a use for the actual acting craft. It might just look very, very different in the future. In the same way we already had CGI where they put things on your face and they create
dots on your face and cameras
exactly,
on your body
and they
to
create
follow
your
you.
movement, but it's still you. You're in a green screen, so it's kind of the next level of this. So I don't think it's the end of actors necessarily, but it will look very, very different. And so advocacy, right, is important.
I know I was projecting a certain sort of paranoia.
No.
I think I can
see from your from your smile that you're comfortable with.
To be honest, I'm excited at the possibility of how, this will evolve, what it looks like to be a human being involved in creative pursuit. I don't buy into the sense that the need for humanity is going to be erased. I think it will challenge those of us who want to continue to be involved in exactly the way we've always been and are precious about aspects of what we've maybe spent many long years, those of us who are millennials or older, many long years sort of developing competencies in suddenly made waste by some random tool.
Yeah.
But I think once you get over that hump, it's actually quite an exciting prospect. When I reflect, for example, on the augmentation on my writing, say, the use of tools like Claude have brought to my process and my workflow and just how much better and more consistent as a creative I've been as a writer, for example. I'm also mindful of just how useful it's helped me be as a singular and specific voice. Right. And I think those of us who are able to lean into those specificities, whether you're an actor on stage, a presenter bringing the news, or expressing yourself as a creator on YouTube, I think there'll be lots of really exciting opportunities to explore.
With all the tools at our disposal, and I'm not the first one to say it, also Sam Altman of OpenAI says this, we're going to see the emergence of really one-person billion-dollar companies, right? Because that means that if you're someone who is creative, who have a certain set of talent or skills, and you're able to connect with people on the basis of who you are and what you're offering, then you will be able on your own to multiply your creative output by, I don't know, time 10, time 100. So, yourself or myself, also with my business content, we can now make podcasts, make books, make, workshops and digital courses so much faster, so much cheaper than we can amplify whatever it is that we're contributing to the world from a creative basis. So, of course, that means less people. That is, we cannot sugarcoat this, right? So it means that the people who have
the jobs are going to be lost.
A lot of jobs are going to be lost. If you don't want to lose your job, you have to learn these tools, right? Mm-hmm. But otherwise, you're not in a good space. But we're going to see the emergence of more individuals who are able to become their own media or creating machine. And that's going to be quite interesting to see.
I believe it's happening on this very podcast when I reflect on just how I've become a subscriber to the value you provide our ecosystem, Marie, meeting you for the first time to have this conversation, but also recognizing that I've quite literally spent hours actually interacting with your content, right?
That's nice.
I'm just seeing this as a whole new augmentation to a connectivity principle I'm starting to flesh out as a framework for myself. But I'm well aware you have deals to make and people to see immediately after this call. So I will have to let you go. And I won't make you promise, but I will put you under the gun to say I'd love to chat again.
We will, I'm sure. You're a great host.
Thank you. Thank you.
You realize that now you have to go video, right?
Do you know what? The young people are on me about not doing video.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from you, I think I might take it a little more seriously now.
Believe me, I know it's a lot more work. Even for the guests, they have to make sure they're camera ready and all of this. But this is obviously what people want to see now. And in terms of marketing, it will enable you to reach much more people. You know the stuff. So next time we speak, I'm sure you'll have a video podcast by then.
I will, for you, ensure that the next time I ask you back on the show, it will be a video podcast.
No, but it will serve you because you have all the skills to do a great video podcast. You're underselling yourself. Yes.
Oh, thank you, Marie.
Of course.
And I'm keeping all this in, by the way. No, but really, I do appreciate it. It means a lot coming from you. And thank you so much for your time. Keep these posts coming. There are real people like me on the other side of LinkedIn and all the other places you show up to share your knowledge, open source knowledge at that. So
exactly.
Thank you so much for all you do. And let's chat again.
Thank you, Andile. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Marie.